Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of My Ordinary Life, the podcast from Inclusion North, which offers you a rare invitation to hear about life from a different perspective. Season 2 of My Ordinary Life is all about a topic that many people try their best to avoid: death and dying. But at Inclusion North, we have a group of people with a learning disability, autistic people and family carers who've been working together for 6 years on a project all about this, and who are very comfortable talking about these subjects. I'm Karen Parry, and as your host, I'll bring members of our group together with experts whose jobs are closely connected to death and dying. We'll share our knowledge and experiences as we explore ways of everyone having honest, accessible conversations about life, death, and what happens next. And along the way, we'll hopefully prove that it doesn't have to be hard or uncomfortable or sad, and that these are conversations that we can all have with the right support. In these episodes, we talk openly and clearly about our own death and the deaths of people we love. If that isn't something you feel ready to listen to just now, maybe save these episodes for later, or listen with a family member or friend who you can talk to after the episode about what you've heard and how you feel. So we're going to start off our conversation today with thinking about, what does a good death mean to you? So Linda, do you want to start?
Yeah, for me, my first thought about what a good death means to me is, if possible, if I am ill with a long-term illness and it's getting towards the end, is to have people important there with me to say that final goodbye, especially for one of my sons who's autistic, is to sort of say, don't worry, I've got no regrets about anything in life. I'm going, but I'll always be looking out for you if you believe that, you know, I'm up there looking down. So please just don't mourn too much, but think about the positives of life and celebrate those good parts of my life. That's how I would like to sort of end my final breaths, if you like. I'd rather it was a celebration of my life. That's my first thought about a good death.
Lovely, thanks Linda. Dorothy, am I okay coming to you next?
My thoughts are much the same as Linda, actually, but also just to add that I would like to die being comfortable, without any pain if possible, and without any other symptoms or problems like sickness or breathlessness, not being able to breathe properly. I would just like to die very comfortably, very peacefully, but I would like the people that I love to be there with me when I die.
Thanks, Dorothy. Gavin?
I think my first thought is friends and family are all right, and I've got everything in place.
Yeah, so you've done some planning,
Yeah.
made some arrangements. You feel comfortable that your friends and family are going to be okay?
Yeah.
And that would give you, would you feel it kind of a bit peaceful?
I think I would, because all my friends and family were okay.
Yeah, we'll take that worry off you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely, thanks Gavin. Fiona?
I kind of feel like I'd feel safer if my family weren't involved. Wow. Because I feel safe as long as I'm feeling comfortable, and having a near-death experience and feeling those feelings of God being with me, I was very relaxed. And I do know, knowing some of my family members, that they would be more anxious themselves, rather than knowing that I'm going to be fine and telling them that, as long as I feel safe. And then that's thinking about them as well in that way, in that regard. So I would feel better just having the doctors around and the medications to relax you, and feel comfortable knowing where I'm going, and sharing that with family has really helped with my autistic son. So that's the way I feel about the good way of approaching death without the fear attached.
Yeah, so similar to Gavin, your concerns really are with your family and protecting them and their anxiety. And
Definitely. Actually,
you seem to feel quite comfortable at the thought of your own death and not necessarily needing your family and friends around you. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your close to death. Yeah.
Yes. So it'll be 3 years ago in December, after my third COVID injection, which isn't used now. I developed something called encephalitis, which attacks your brain, and I lost my ability to speak within 2 days. And my daughter got the doctor in, the GP. The GP said I was fine because I was relaxed in bed in his time there. But then she got emergency in. Now, before she got the emergency in, I really said to God, take me now, because my head was at that explosive time and I wanted to go. I wanted to go. And I was sitting up, it was only about 8 o'clock at night, and I remember it. And then all of a sudden, this fantastic light came around me, and the headache and everything and the pain vanished. It just vanished. And I held my hands out, and I was really wanting to go because it was so peaceful. And I didn't know what the outcomes would have been otherwise when I was going through that for a few days. And that's what I remember. And I was in a coma. My daughter got me into hospital the next morning. I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks in Durham Hospital. From encephalitis, you lose memory and abilities to walk and everything. And I noticed my daughter and I said, oh, am I still here? Because actually it was such a peaceful experience that I would have been very happy to go. Plus I was feeling poorly again. So I never have any fear now. I'm prepared, well prepared, and I know what's going to happen. So having those life experiences and sharing it with people can help, because if you're feeling safe and you're feeling you don't have those experiences anymore, then you feel relaxed about what comes next.
Yeah, and thanks so much for sharing that, because it's an amazing story, and I can feel how confident and comfortable you feel after that experience, and that you've got no fear.
No fear, and sharing that with people who do, you know, and I share with, as we're a group for autistic people as well, who can have a lot of anxiety about just what happens next. I think being open from real life experience can be valuable for some, and telling the truth of your experience, that's important.
Thanks, Fiona. Davina, can I ask you what a good death means to you?
I was thinking about it, and in my first year working at St Oswald's Hospice, there was a lady on the ward who was dying, and she was still conscious, and she had a family all around her, a husband and her sisters, and she just very slowly started to sleep more and be less able to talk as time went on. And I watched her family, and they were eating crisps, drinking Prosecco and laughing. And I thought, I think that's the kind of death I'd like. I don't want to be at home, because I don't want my home to be a place where I died for my family. So I think I would like to be somewhere like a hospice, surrounded by my family, no pain, relaxed, and the last thing I hear is my loved one's laughter.
Wow, what a lovely thing. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because we do believe what we think we know at the minute is that hearing is the last sense to go before you die. So my next question really was going to be, if that's the case, as you're dying, if you got the death that you wanted, what would you want to hear? Would it be the sound of your family's laughter? Is there some music that you love? What would that be?
I think if I can answer that, Karen, I would like to say I'm a great fan of Shania Twain, and I would just love a music playing when I was really poorly. The other song that I would really like to hear is a very old song that a lady called Doris Day sang, called Que Sera Sera. And I would really like to hear that song because it's talking about life in different stages of life and what people can expect when they're young, when they grow up, maybe when they get married and become a parent or just live their life, and that song reflects that. So I would like to hear that. I also quite like poetry, and there's a lovely poem called The Next Place, and the next place that you go to when you die is heaven. And the poem talks about that. It reflects on life, and what it learned me is that it doesn't matter how much you have in life, so how rich you are or how poor you are. When you go to the next place, you can't take anything like that with you. But what you can take when you die to the next place is the love of people that you've had and people that you've loved, and also lovely memories of your life with those that matter to you. So I would like that. All my family know about that poem, and I would like somebody to sit and read that to me as I'm ready to go to the next place.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Dorothy. It's interesting, isn't it, that we've brought up a kind of faith belief system. So for Christians, the belief is that heaven follows life and death, and obviously different people have different beliefs or no beliefs. Some people think there's nothing, but it'll be interesting to maybe find out what people on the panel believe after we've talked a bit about other things that other people might like to hear as they die. Gavin, I know you've got a favourite song and musician, haven't you?
My favourite song is, I'll tell you the favourite artist first. My favourite artist is Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
And my favourite song is by Manilow, Mandy.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. And I've seen you listen to Mandy by Barry Manilow, and it like takes you to a different place somehow, doesn't it? Yeah. Lovely. Linda, for yourself?
I was thinking about what the questions would be yesterday, and I thought what I would love if I knew I was dying is to have a celebration of my life with everybody in my life while I'm still able to, knowing that illness might progress and I get more poorly, because I can't see the point of people celebrating after a funeral, for instance. I know they're not celebrating as such, but after a few drinks in the pub, everyone gets more relaxed and just getting on as normal. But I think if I was on my deathbed, so to speak, and I was nearing the end, that's when I would want absolute quiet and just to know that people are there. Because I know now if I'm poorly, which doesn't happen very often, I need to be on my own. Right. I don't like all that fuss, and I just need to be on my own to get over being poorly. So I think if I was at the very end, I would be so happy knowing that people are there. Could be in a hospice, could be at home. But that's an interesting point about the memories if you die at home, how that might feel for other people who are still there. So yeah, for me it would be about having that nice peaceful.
So no sound, really.
So no sound, not even music.
Yeah.
Just to go off very peacefully and with no stimulation whatsoever. And I think to have somebody holding my hand would be nice.
Yeah.
For one of my sons who's got quite a severe learning disability and autism, in fairness, it wouldn't be fair for him to be there because he wouldn't understand what's going on, and he would distract other people's emotions because he's quite vocal, because he doesn't use words to communicate. Obviously, I would want him at my funeral. That's totally different. But I think for me, for that peaceful ending, and it might sound a bit bizarre to some people, but it's very personal, that it wouldn't be fair for Alfie because he doesn't understand, and it wouldn't be fair for everybody else because they'd be on edge thinking Linda wants quiet, and Alfie doesn't understand quiet, but he'd probably come in and out.
Yeah. It's a really interesting point that you've raised, and we will come round to this side of the panel around what you might want to hear or not hear. But if I can just draw attention to some resources that we've brought.
Yeah.
Because for people who don't always use words to communicate, there are some resources by a company called Beyond Words.
Yeah.
That they're books with just pictures and not words. And so anyone who's listening, if they Googled Beyond Words, they would find these resources.
Yeah,
And obviously you're not saying that you wouldn't prepare Alfie, you're just kind of saying that actual moment where, you know, you feel like the best thing for you as she died was quiet, that might not be the best place for Alfie to be, but you would still be able to sort of talk to him and prepare him before your death kind of thing. And it's just useful for people to know that there are some resources around.
Good resource.
So thanks, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Fiona, you can come up with song lyrics for every situation.
Yeah, well, I'm relaxed about it now because of the real life experience I've had. Yes, I'm Christian, but I always wondered if there was really a heaven. And now I know that there is a wonderful experience afterwards where everybody feels safe and relaxed. And so the questions about what would you have if you knew you were dying, mine would be like yours, total silence. I loved silence, especially since I experienced that. But also I like to look at nature. If I could still see, I love to see trees and the sky. That relaxes me greatly. And as far as my son goes, you know, he's autistic Sue as well, but we talked about life after death and his anxiety as well. You know, what'll I do? Will I see you again? I'll say, absolutely, I'll be waiting for you and I'm always going to be around you anyway. You'll feel me. And he has a sixth sense and he says he does when I'm not with him. He knows what I'm thinking about. So it's opening those avenues for people to feel safe and relaxed and not feel like they'll never have those feelings of being relaxed. And I love those feelings.
Lovely, thanks Fiona. And Doreen, I know you said hearing the laughter of your family and friends around the bed, but is there any music or songs in particular?
I never thought, because I've got my funeral songs planned.
Right.
But I haven't ever really thought about music. There's a bit of me likes peace and quiet so they can keep the laughter down every now and again. Because I think dying is quite an active thing that we have to do and we need to have the space for that. But I think I'd like to hear my family say, it's all right to go, Mum. That we're going to be all right. And we'll give you our permission to go wherever it is that you're going to go next.
Yeah, lovely. One of the reasons why we try and become more comfortable talking about death and dying is because it's going to be part of all our lives. We don't know when, but it's going to happen to all of us. And I think sometimes it can help us focus on living life well and having a great life because we acknowledge that we're going to die. So, you know, change of gear, you know, let's have a think about how do we make the most out of life? What's important to us? You know, some people have a bucket list, don't they? If they know that they're approaching their own death, or sometimes people reach a certain age and they think, oh, I need to do 40 things because I'm 40, etc. You know, have these kinds of lists. Has anybody got strong feelings about things they still want to do in their life, or what for them makes a really good life?
I don't have a bucket list as such, but when my best friend was alive, she died 6 years ago, and she was okay. She had health problems, but she wasn't at end of life or anything like that. But we used to send letters to each other because she lived in Norfolk, and she would say a couple of things that she wanted to do, like go on a helicopter ride or hot air balloon, or go to Wales on the zip wire. And I would reply, and it was like pen pals almost because of the distance. And I would say, oh, well, I'd like to go on the Orient Express. And so some things were a bit make-believe in a way, because I don't think I'll ever go on the Orient Express, although it would be nice. But now that, and these are things that I brought today in memory of my friend Nikki, who's I've known her for 41 years. And she used to be much more thoughtful than I must admit. So she'd buy like little books, thank you to a real friend, and she'd write little things in it. Here's a for instance, what is it? And again, this is brilliant because I can look at it and just open it, and the small silly things. A fairy cake with a candle in the icing on my birthday. But she's crossed out fairy cake and put pickled egg. Because years ago, and she had such a good memory, and sometimes hate people with good memories because they really embarrass me. So I didn't realise that you pickled eggs without the shell on. And she just never ever let me forget that. And it was like just a standard joke. So yeah, so she would buy these lovely little books. And then she lived in Downham Market. And there's a gorgeous little book there that I look at now and again and think, I love my visits to Downham Market because she made me feel so welcome. And bless her, she did die unexpectedly. She had mental health problems. So I'd seen her on the Thursday, and by the Saturday morning, she was gone. So it was a real shock. So we had this great friendship, and we had this bucket list. But now, my bucket list is quite simple. For instance, I want to go fishing.
Right.
You know, when my waders on a stream, you know, like that programme that's on the telly with Bob Mortimer. Mm-hmm. And I think I just want to do simple things like that seem so relaxing, but enjoy. Because I do, even though I'm quite outgoing, I do like peace and quiet as well, and do slow-paced activities as well as wild ones. So yeah, no bucket list, but I do feel that once I get out of bed, my day is full. And I think that's why I sleep so well, because once I stop, that's it, I'm like asleep.
Gone. Lovely, thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
And Gavin, for you, what does it mean to get the most out of life for you? What are you passionate about?
I have my bucket list as such, but my favourite thing is to see on t-shirt. I love health.
Yeah. So for anyone who's only listening and not watching the video, Gavin's got a bright orange t-shirt on with a beautiful barn owl on the front.
Yeah, I love them. Just lovely. I've seen a barn owl, I've held one.
Wow.
I've seen them fly.
So that's something that's really special for you. Lovely,
Yeah.
Thanks, Gavin. Dorothy, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm another person. I don't have a bucket list as such. I have a very busy life, a very full life, because I'm busy. So, like Linda, I have grandparents. I have a very elderly relative. I have a lovely job. It's quite demanding, challenging at times, but it's very good. So I tend to just like accept life as it comes and, you know, take sort of the wonderful opportunities to make memories all of the time. I don't have too many expectations in life. I think I've always been a person that's, if you don't have any, you know, lots of big expectations, then you won't be disappointed. So I really just wake up in the morning and live life for that day. Really, that's, you know, how I do it. And just knowing that I have some wonderful people in my life is really enough for me. If there's one thing on a bucket list, and this might make some people laugh because I've just quite never got around to having this, but I would love to have a porn star martini cocktail. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons for that is because I gather you get a little glass of Prosecco with it, and I'm not quite sure why you do, but it's something I would like to try.
Wow, lovely.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Dorothy. Fiona.
What was the main question?
The main question is about how do you make the most out of life? What does living a good life mean to you?
Mm-hmm. Peace, tranquility, feeling safe, looking at nature, and that's it for me for the day.
Mm-hmm. Lovely, thank you. Davina?
I love my job. I get a lot out of that. It gives me meaning and purpose, and still mostly happy to get out of bed in the morning and go to the hospice. And obviously I've talked a lot about my family. My family are very, very important to me. So making sure I get time with them and my besties. But also sometimes I like to shut the door and not see anybody for a few hours, days, which is time for me to refill. And I read. I'm a book nerd, actually. I read a lot of books. And so that balance between that. I have got one bucket list thing, and this is going to sound like I've just made it up for today, but I'd really like to write a hit Broadway musical about death and dying.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
So because I think it could be really funny but moving at the same time. I've got little pictures in me already.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Wow, lovely, exciting. So from the quite easy to do, a porn star martini with a Prosecco on the side, to like award-winning West End musical and everything in between. Amazing. So we did touch earlier on about Christian beliefs about heaven. Now obviously not everybody kind of believes that. Has anybody got different beliefs that they would like to share, or no belief, the belief that maybe death is the end and there is nothing after?
I feel death is the end.
Right.
I don't honestly, even though I said earlier, you know, I would say to my son, I'm always looking out for you, over you. I just don't feel, how can there be somewhere for so many people? I think it's just a thought for people to make them feel happier that they're going to meet up with people from the past. So, I don't know whether it's because growing up I didn't get on with my mum, and people say, oh, but if you meet up again, she might be a nicer person. But I can't see that happening. You know, people seem to have this thing that everything's all like utopia up there, and I just can't get my head around it.
Yeah, thanks.
At
That's
all.
a really interesting, totally alternative view, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? Don't worry if not, but it's just to open that up.
Well, I used to be a Christian minister, a lay minister.
Right.
And I was when I first started at the hospice. But I just felt I met so many different people with different views that the church actually narrowed that for me. So I took the decision to leave the church because I felt I needed to be more exclusive as a person, inclusive as a person even. And I just, you know, I've been around bereavement and death and dying for a long time. And I just think there is something else. It's possibly not something that can be put into words, but the love bonds that we have with the people that we love never vanish, that they continue after death. I like to think there's somewhere where we go and it might be completely different. It might be in different forms and things, but I don't believe in a heaven that's only for Christians and that I'll be sitting on a cloud playing a harp for eternity, because I think that would be actually really dull.
Thanks, Davina. Fiona, did you want to answer that question? Have you got beliefs about, does anything happen after you die, or is that the end?
Well, I was nearly there.
Yes.
And, you know, sharing again about the light. I'm using the word light, but it was more of a calmness around in some light, and feeling the safety and the love. And love never dies. And you can keep it inside when that person's gone. And I've had experiences since then of other people who have passed on, being close to me, and I love it. I absolutely love it. And having that silence to be able to do that, and the tranquility, it just opens up more doors. It really does. So opening your mind and your heart to that really gives you the impact inside. That's still my feelings.
Thanks,
every
Fiona.
day.
Gavin, what about you? Have you got any thoughts about what might happen when you die? Is there anything after?
Hopefully you go to a happy place.
Yeah. Whatever that looks like for
Whatever,
you. Yeah.
whatever it is. Hopefully some members of your family at a happy place.
Yeah. Yeah. Some members of your family who've already died, maybe meeting up with them again.
Yeah.
But the main sense is that it's a happy place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. Thanks, Gavin. So we're just going to move on as we sort of start to bring this conversation to an end, just to kind of have a bit of a think about what choices we might get to make at the end of our life, or as we plan for the end of our life. And I'm going to call upon Davina and Dorothy in their professional role initially to help us think about what are some of the choices available to us if we get the opportunity to make those decisions, and talk to us a little bit about that, and then the rest of us can come in with our thoughts. So Davina, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I think I've learned how important it is to make decisions about what you want to happen to you when you know that time's running out and you're going to die, and what happens to you up to the point that you die, and then what happens to your body afterwards. I think it's really important to know that we've got choices and that we have a voice in that, and to say what it is that we want, to record that somehow so that people know what it is that you want. If, for example, you're very poorly and you can't speak anymore, it's really important to have your wishes recorded. They're difficult conversations to have, but what I see is the benefit and what a kind thing it is to do for your family. So that they're grieving because they're really sad that you've died, but they know what you want from your funeral, what you want to be wearing, what songs you want played, where you want your funeral, if you want to be buried or cremated, where if you like your ashes scattered. Those are really important things, but little things that people need to think of is something like social media passwords, what they are, because you have this whole digital life that carries on after you've died. So having your loved ones able to access accounts. And I've worked with people who, the way in couples where one's been responsible for paying all the bills and doing all the doing stuff, and when they die, the one that's left behind is, I'm not sure what I need to do. So again, telling people what your bank is, your building society, which gas company, which phone company, all of those little practical things. But I always was frightened to have those conversations with my mum, because somehow I thought I'd make death happen if I had those conversations. And I think she really wanted to talk about those things, and I didn't let her because I thought it was really morbid. But I know a bit better now.
I think you were probably both scared. She was scared of upsetting you. You were
Yes,
scared of upsetting her.
I'm sure that's the truth.
And the conversation never happened, and you maybe both wanted to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which
you both just froze?
Yeah, both just froze and never got beyond that point. Which is why we're making this podcast, isn't it? Because we're hoping that us having these conversations makes it easier for other people to start that conversation with their loved ones and friends at home.
And are there some resources that you can record all of that information, like your passwords and...
Yeah, there are resources out there, and certainly St Oswald's has resources that we use, but as long as you have a think about what you want people to know, you could record that on a recorder to be able to play back. You could make a little podcast of what you wanted. There's lots of different ways of doing it. It's just finding help to know what it is that you need to record, because we don't think about that every day, do we? So
I asked, because yesterday I looked up for any resources, and there is some really good booklets about, planning for your death and your funeral and everything like that. And it included a sheet on, passwords, a thing on important phone numbers.
yes.
And I thought, I've never seen them before. I never even give it a thought. And then you can get printables as well.
Yeah.
You can print it out and go through it together.
And what we'll do, we'll get the links to those, Linda, and put the links in our podcast show notes so everyone can very easily find them.
Something you wouldn't normally look for, but I thought, I'll have a little look, see what's out there.
Yeah. So Dorothy, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so in the Northeast, we're very fortunate because we have resources to help us with decision making as we become more poorly. And that comes from guidelines called Deciding Right that has been developed several years ago now. And I've found all of the resources and the documents within Deciding Right really helpful and really empowering, and people with a learning disability as well have liked some of the resources that we have within Deciding Right, and we've developed some more accessible resources in Deciding Right for people with learning disabilities. So these guidelines in Deciding Right, that it's all to help us make decisions about our future care and planning in advance. And that's both for people that have the capacity to make those decisions, and also for people who don't have the capacity. So Deciding Right gives us frameworks and resources to make decisions in line with the Mental Capacity Act for people who can't make decisions for themselves. So some of those decisions might be around resuscitation. They might be around how much treatment a person gets if they become more poorly. People would always get treatment to keep them comfortable and help with pain and other symptoms at the end of life. But just to give an example, it might be decided that to take somebody back to hospital, to a busy A&E department or a busy medical ward isn't helpful at that time in their life. And we can write that down within some of the resources that Deciding Right has. So we have a resource called an emergency healthcare plan, and that's where we gather all the information about an individual. We can do that with the person, with their family, if they so wish, or in the person's best interests. We are very fortunate in the Northeast, I feel, in my personal life, in my job role, to have Deciding Right, because other areas often don't have such good resources.
Thanks, Dorothy. That's really helpful. So we're coming towards the end of the time that we've got together, but I want to give everyone just one last chance in case there's anything else that people feel that they want to say. Fiona, I can see you itching, so I'm going to bring you in.
I am itching just to build on from what you're saying. It's getting the knowledge out to people. I've never heard of Deciding Rights, and my autistic son is connected with hospitals, with care groups, and the knowledge is not there. Also, the knowledge is not there for helping in lasting power of attorney for parents, which still is neglected. And unfortunately, with that, the person that you want to have the lasting power of attorney for has to have that understanding and ability before you make it. So I think there's still quite a neglect in this department for autistic people and learning disability people, and of course their parents and carers with it.
Thanks, Fiona. Davina, any last thoughts?
Just don't be like me and be scared to have those conversations with people that you love. They're very important. They can be scary, but they're worth it. Know that you've got choices. Look into things, get people to help you to look into things. I'll put it out there, if you want to have a visit to St Oswald's Hospice and find out what a hospice is like, you're very welcome to come and visit. But please don't be frightened. Thinking about things like death and dying is scary, but actually we're getting better at it.
It is scary, Davina, and I think it's quite scary sometimes, even for medical staff, to talk about it. And when my own mother was in hospital and she was very ill, and all I wanted to do was bring her home and care for her at home. But before I did that, there was some conversations to have, and the doctors tried to have a conversation with me about my mother not being resuscitated should her heart stop. And what I said to the doctor was, should we have that conversation with my mum together? Should we talk to her together? And they were a little bit surprised, but we did. And what my mum's answer was, when the doctor talked about it, she said she was 83-year-old at the time and really unwell with her heart. And she said, no, I don't want anybody to put hands on my chest and try to bring me back to life if my heart stops. I don't want any tubes put inside my body.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. Yeah. Linda, final thoughts?
Again, I hadn't come across what you were explaining earlier, and I just think for my son, who has got very complex learning disability needs and autism, and today's prompted me to think about my son's death, which will probably happen after I've gone, and I really do feel after today, I'm going to give that thought. I've already given it a little bit of thought because Alfie lives in a beautiful village with other people who've got learning disabilities and autism. and that is his home, and I'd love him to be buried in there when the time comes. So I've thought about that, but I haven't sort of documented it, or, do you know what I mean? Thought about other things around what will happen to Alfie when he dies, when I already died. So today's prompted me really to think about more about getting it right for Alfie, not other people who don't know him.
So we'll just wrap it up then. Can I just thank everyone coming to join us this afternoon and sharing all your thoughts and your experiences. I think it's been a really great conversation. I'm sure we've all learned things from each other, things we'll maybe take away and think about and maybe take action on. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode and are feeling very kind, please rate, review and subscribe, and be sure to tell your family and friends to have a listen too. The music you've heard in these episodes was composed for us by O'Holy and Tito and published by Voice Publishing. If you'd like to listen to the full song, you can find the link in the show notes. And if you'd like to share your ordinary life with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on social media at Ordinary Life 66. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to catch up with you again soon.